Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Stockholm University and VINNOVA, I wish you all very warm welcome to the National Framework 7 Information Day on the theme Environment, including climate change. The welcome includes, of course, all of you sitting in this room at the House of Geosciences, but also following this meeting on the web. My name is Esa Stenberg, and I'm the national contact point on at VINNOVA, and I'll be your host today. As you notice, we have a rather busy agenda, 2 hours for very distinguished speakers, but before we start the program, just want to point on 3 practical things. First, we will have the question and answer sessions after each presentation, and so I want you to gather your questions and bring them out then. Later, we will also need a microphone to make the web followers to hear the questions. Second, the presentation ends at 3:15, and that's also where we close the webcasting. Those who are here at Stockholm University will have a possibility to have a networking with a coffee and tea, and at 3:30 there will be a possibility to have informal discussions, one-by-one meetings with some of the speakers, the national contact points, and the one representative from the grants office at Stockholm University. And the schedule is displayed outside this room. So let's move on to the first speaker today, and that is Dr. Franz Imler, who is a scientific officer at DG Research, and he's at the unit Climate Change and Natural Hazards. His areas of responsibilities include atmospheric physics, polar research, and also geoengineering, which suits very well to be in this room. He has also a rather recent experience from the 7th Framework Program, which is I think, is a little bit unusual in the European Commission. So please, Franz, enter the stage. Oh, it doesn't work.
Does it? Yes, it does.
No, I don't.
You hear me all?
Yeah.
And the web everywhere? I have to go here, obviously. Okay, thanks, Esa, for this introduction, and thanks for inviting me here today to this beautiful city to present the work program 2013, the last work program of the FP7 framework program. I will, in the first few minutes, briefly introduce the basic objectives of the environmental theme in this in the cooperation program, and then later present the specific topics in each of the topics in the program. So the general objective of the environment theme is to work towards a sustainable management of the environment, and this is mainly done by advancing our knowledge of the environment, and particularly of the interactions between the different compartments of the environment: climate, biosphere, ocean, ecosystem, and so on. And also to develop new technologies, that is tools and services, in order to address the environmental issues in an integrated way and to improve the way we deal with the environment. So the emphasis of this specific call is also on this specific call is on the prediction of climate. The prediction of climate, which is a very ambitious task, ecological Earth-ocean systems, or the Earth system in general, and to develop tools and technologies for better observing the environment and also mitigation and adaptation to changes of the environment. So this should work towards the sustainability of the natural and the cultivated environment, so both parts. There are 5 social challenges which are mentioned in the framework program, which are addressed by this program, by the work program 2013. These are coping with climate change, sustainable use and management of land and seas, improving resource efficiency, protecting citizens from environmental hazards, and mobilizing environmental knowledge for policy, industry, and society. And there will be subtopics to each of those challenges that I will present later on. The key drivers for the program is the Europe 2020 strategy. I hope at least most of you are familiar with, in its flagship initiative on innovation. And innovation is the big term used for the Horizon 2020, is improving innovation, improving the way we deal with innovation, improving in particular the way we make our market be more innovative and the way we live more innovative. So the one goal is bridging towards Horizon 2020. And as I already pointed out, innovation is one of the central goals to be targeted in Horizon 2020. And that should be achieved by making innovation more closer to the market, to support market uptake, to support the delivery of innovative products and processes. And the innovation in Horizon 2020, the innovation dimension will be a part of the evaluation criteria for all, more or less for all calls under the impact criterion. SMEs is already in FP7. For those who don't know, Horizon 2020 is the successor of FP7. It's not called FP8 for several reasons, even though that would be very logic. So SMEs are targeted already in FP7, will continue to be targeted to be specifically supported in Horizon 2020. And in this call, there will be 14 topics with mandatory SME participation. The call contributes to the cross-thematic issues that are listed here: ocean of the future, water, raw materials, smart cities, secure, clean, and efficient energy, and bioresource efficiency. International cooperation is fostered by the program in general, by the call also specifically. All topics are, as usual, open to participants from the ICPC states, that includes South America and Africa and so on. This call specifically fosters the networking and clustering of projects in specific regions, and these are Latin America, the Asian states, the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and the North Atlantic. And the topics where these areas are targeted, climate change definitely always has an international component. The climate, the Arctic is an international area, the ocean in general, and the atmosphere. And in this topic, we look forward to have international cooperation also outside of Europe. The topic natural disasters is specifically targeting also Japan and Asia, in particular regarding to tsunamis. And GEO, the Group for Earth Observation, capacity building is addressing also countries from outside Europe, specifically Latin America and the Mediterranean Black Sea area. All projects are encouraged to enhance the communication and dissemination. We don't want the scientists in the ivory tower. We want that the results are being used by the people who pay it, that's the taxpayers from Europe, and have access to the results. And therefore, there's a requirement for all projects to make their publications available best online, by open access, online by using online journals. This is greatly encouraged. And probably in Horizon 2020, this will be even stronger, not only encouragement, but obligation to publish with open access. So that's not clear yet, but it makes sense because it's public money being spent and everybody should have access to the results. And also we want to enforce the use of the results and the uptake by markets, by politicians, by the stakeholders. Sorry. I think I skipped one. There's a bit of a simplification in the structure of this call. This is usually quite complicated, a different type of projects, different type of evaluations, and so on, collaborative coordination action. There's a bit more structure in this call, and that is that all collaborative projects will be evaluated with a two-stage evaluation procedure. And this means that there's a first deadline for the call, which is for most of these calls in October, where people are requested, the consortium requested to give a short 10-page outline of the project, and that will be evaluated, and the ones who pass will then go to the second stage where they submit a full proposal for the project, with the deadline then in February. All coordination support action go to the usual one-stage evaluation procedure. And that's the same, this transparency. I changed it in the airplane, but unfortunately the changes got lost. So that holds also all these calls in these subtopics or cross-thematic topics, ocean of tomorrow, energy efficient building, and so on, go through the one-stage evaluation. So this is the call details that you can see also in the call fiches. It's the environment 2 stage, deadline is 16th of October, the budget is the indicative budget is 248 million. So this is the biggest chunk of the project. There's a one stage for the coordination actions with the same deadline, 17 million. And then we have these subtopics that I will go through in more detail, but they have other deadlines, so you should take a close look. So the first topic is coping with climate change. That's also the topic I'm working in. The overall aim is to enhance our knowledge about the climate system in general. There will be two topics addressing processes, one in the ocean, one in the atmosphere, to enhance our knowledge to better be able to predict the climate system and to make this knowledge then in other topics and also in this topic available for the stakeholders, for the policy making process. So the high trends in global greenhouse gas emissions, greenhouse gases, CO2 in particular, are still rising faster than ever. On the other hand, policy is not really making progress in addressing this problem. So there's a high need to, one reason for this are the uncertainties that we're still facing in the predictions. So there's a reason to reduce these uncertainties. And this will be addressed, and the quantification of the high-end scenarios. I will probably go in a bit more detail. Then mitigation and adaptation policies. There will be two calls. These are the calls. So the first two ones, the specific topics, the first two ones address processes in the climate system, in the ocean, the first one, the atmosphere, second one. The impact of higher end scenarios addresses the question, what will happen if we fail to stay within the 2-degree limit? Then the contribution of land cover and land use change to mitigate. It's very important. Half of the CO2 emissions are actually from this area, not from the fossil fuel. And two other topics that will be the smaller ones is the quantification of consumption-based emissions and the economics of adaptation to climate change. I'm rushing through this, but we can ask questions later. So the first four topics are designed to be bottom-up approaches. So it's the scientific community can suggest their important issues or can address the important issues, while the other two are policy-orientated research activities. The second topic, the sustainable use and management of land and sea. The overall aim of this topic is to improve the knowledge base on how ecosystems react to pressure in order to underpin the implementation of the transition phase to resilient, sustainable, and resource-efficient society. So the implementation of the resource-efficient technologies and an overall change towards a more sustainable society is the topic here. And this should be done by developing and strengthening European leadership in some areas where there is European leadership, and to promote and facilitate the knowledge transfer to policymakers in particular. So here are the topics. It's quite a lot. One is first is addressing the water resource management, then pollutants or toxicants. The third one then is the transition to a sustainable low carbon society, so it's a broad, more socio-economic topic. Sustainable land care in Europe, urban biodiversity is one topic, and then we have improved monitoring and the impact of cultivation on the environment using Earth observation, or that's another topic related to GEO, to the global Earth observation in general. And the other ones, development of advanced technologies for tools and sustainable management of Europe's deep sea, subsea floor resources. All right. The key features of this topic, the sustainable use of sustainable management, are in relation to issues, to the key issues of the EU environmental policy. That's important. So there's the Water Framework Directive and other policies that are really addressed by this topic. And there's a particular accent on the concept of ecosystem services. And also the GEO-GLAM initiative, that's the part of GEO Group of Earth Observation, the Global Agricultural Geomonitoring Initiative. There's a cross-thematic call, the Ocean of Tomorrow, which is implemented jointly by different themes of the framework program. And I'm not going to all this detail. It addresses in particular biosensors for real-time monitoring, innovative multifunctional sensors for in-situ monitoring, and anti-fouling materials, and finally innovative transport and deployment systems for the offshore sector. There's certainly something to do there. So the overall aim is to work towards a green economy of this topic, and also very important in this topic is enhanced participation of the private sector, and particularly SMEs. It works towards technology, towards solutions, and the private sector needs to be included here. So the third topic is improving resource efficiency. I'm not going through all these details here. What I want to point out is that I lost my changes here. So important of the objectives is the development testing of eco-innovative technologies. That's one important keyword here. The improved assessment of global water resources by GEO or by Earth observation, and the improved resource efficiency, in particular concerning existing buildings. There will be a call towards that, as you will see here. So turning waste into a resource is the first topic, eco-innovative demonstration. Then the assessment of global water resources by Earth observation, water innovation demonstration, and finally the integration, the support to the transnational networks regarding water. It's another topic here of importance. And the one relating to the energy efficient buildings, specifically targeting towards renewal of existing buildings, renewal and retrofitting. This is the overview of the call. You can see all this in the call fish. If you have questions to the details, ask later. So the key features here is innovation orientation, so with a focus on demonstration, and also on SME support for the contribution of the small and medium enterprises. Challenge 4 is dealing with the protection of citizens from natural hazards or environmental hazards, with the overall aim to reduce the risk from environmental hazards by better understanding what's going on, and also look at the effect from environmental effects on human health. So the objective here is to better understand the exposure to hazards with regard to health issues, and to improve the knowledge with respect to natural hazards. Here the focus will be mainly on coastal threats and stresses. One is tsunami, I already mentioned this, and other climate change related threats to coasts. So here the specific topics. First one is addressing the individual exposure to all kinds of stressors with respect to health issues, and that should pave the way for an EU-wide assessment. The second one considers the topic of electromagnetic fields. Is there a hazard to our health from mobile phones? I think this, I'm not sure about the detail. Look into it before I say something wrong, but all kinds of electromagnetic fields. And finally, stress test. The topic stress test has become very important since Fukushima, I think, but this relates to all kinds of critical infrastructures that could be affected from natural hazards. The final topic is mobilizing environmental knowledge for policy, industry, and society. The overall aim here is to stimulate innovative approaches to facilitate the knowledge transfer, to improve the uptake of research results by policymakers, by enterprises, by the society in general. I skipped this. There's lots of objectives, but I think it's quite obvious why we need to improve the uptake of knowledge by the stakeholders in our work towards the green economy. So the specific topics here are accelerating the progress towards the green economy is one specific topic, mobilizing environmental knowledge for policy and society. Then the open data strategy that should mobilize the use of environmental data and information. Knowledge platforms, networking and uptake of research results. And network of forward-looking activities and assessment of research and innovation prospects. And there's another one which is an ERANET Plus action and targets towards the development of new technologies and products for the assessment of cultural heritage in general. So modern artifacts, building and sites. So here's the structure of the call. There's one two-stage call, which is 5.3, the exploitation of the data, open data strategy, and the other one are one-stage calls, including the ERANET. And the budget is 31 million. So, this one I wanted to skip, but this is an overview of the last, since I think I have some time left, I can actually go. This is an overview of the last call, the 2012 call, that we are now almost finished with, and projects have already started or are about to start in the very near future. There was a similar structure, so there were one-stage calls, two-stage calls, and then specific topics. And yeah, here's a bit more detail to give you an idea how this two-stage process roughly works. So in this two-stage call, there was one two-stage call here. We received 352 proposals requiring a grant, if we funded them all, of 1.5 billion euros. And from them, about 1/3 passed through the first stage, made it to the second stage. That was 120 proposals were left after the first stage, and they submitted, except 4, they just did not submit a second proposal. The other 116 did, requiring a grant of still 584 million. And then in the second stage, it's basically again about 1/3 that then passed. From 115 proposals, 16 I thought. At the end, 43 got funding. And this graph shows the participation of EU member states. You see that United Kingdom is doing very well and get their projects funded, followed by Germany. Where is Sweden? Sweden is here. I think comparative to the size, Sweden is doing a pretty good job here. And with this, thank you for your attention. And please ask questions.
Thanks a lot, Franz. Very good, very nice, comprehensive and valuable presentation, a summary of the work program. So the floor is now open for questions. Jessica will bring you the microphone.
Hi. I'm wondering how much space is there in these calls for basic research? I can't get a good feel because you always have to say anyway. I mean, it's always indirectly related to climate change, but what do you think? Do you think we should rather go to basic research councils for basic research? Or
yes, generally the entire program of the challenges works towards solutions for problems that we are already facing. So it's not really the program for basic research. On the other hand, we do have, for example, in my topic, there are two subtopics, one looking at processes in the ocean, one looking at processes in the atmosphere, related to a better understanding of the climate system, but that is to some extent related to basic research, better understanding of the natural systems. But in general, this program is not designed for supporting basic research. If you need support for basic research, refer to the European Research Council. That's the institution funding basic research. Well, that's the program, it's not an institution.
Very quick question. What can you define Northern Atlantic?
Sorry, can you wait for the microphone?
Yeah.
Take the
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Richard Langley at FOI. And I have a simple question. The first is for the two-stage calls. Is there a template? And the other question is, you use the word environmental, say environmental knowledge. Are we to understand that as interchangeable with climate change? That environmental knowledge also includes climate change? Or should we only go on the specific distinction according to the call?
So the first question was if there's a template. Yeah. Yes, there you find all the documents on the Cordis server, and there's a template for both stages. And for the first stage, the proposals should not be longer than 10 pages. That's important. The second question, environmental knowledge. This is a very general question. I would suggest to look really into the description of the topic to find out what they really mean here under this subtopic. And your question was?
My question was that please can you define the area of North Atlantic? Yeah, that's right. Is that includes United States, or what is included in that?
Well, the North Atlantic is including not the United States, because that's a continent, obviously. Sorry, but it includes the entire northern part I'm not sure if there's a clear definition, but if it's north of, I don't know, 50 degrees or 45, but it includes also the Labrador Sea and parts of the Atlantic Ocean west of Greenland. Yes.
That means there's no partnership with the United States then in these programs?
We are also open to partnership with the United States. I'm aware of several projects that include partners from the United States, and in a topic regarding Northern Atlantic, it would certainly be a good idea, maybe, or could be very helpful to include them. But they cannot get funding in general. So generally, participants from these states will not receive money. But they can still participate in the project.
I'm Erik Sandström of Eco Innovation AB. I have a question on Challenge 6.3, improving resource efficiency. And it says that the second objective is to support demonstration projects to improve the viability and also market uptake of existing cutting-edge eco-innovative technologies. This thing on market uptake would be very interesting to hear you elaborate some on what is really meant by supporting development of market uptake when we are talking about these projects that are basically anyway research projects. Thank you.
I think I have the answer or a answer to this question somewhere of the first transparencies. This is generally what the activities that should support market uptake. It's prototyping, testing, demonstrating, knowledge transfer, and proof of concept. And the project should foresee to include one of these concepts to show, for example, demonstration or proof of concept, demonstrate that whatever they developed is useful and could be used by the real economy.
As I look at that, it's quite clear that most of it is really clearly what is previously been meant by research projects, but knowledge transfer and demonstrating that could might go a little bit further towards the market. What is the meaning of knowledge transfer in this context?
Well, knowledge transfer is a. I think I'm not so much into this topic, but as far as I know, it's a quite general concept of transferring knowledge from the research institutes, from the university to the economy, to companies, to other stakeholders, also policymakers that use it. So it's partly dissemination of knowledge, just getting these people involved, letting them know what you have made or what you have achieved. And also it could mean really deploying your new technology that you have developed in your laboratories, in the field, in a company that really makes product out of it.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
From University. There's a few projects which give you like 9 million euros, 12 million euros, but to say it's only up to one project might be funded. Does it means this really big consortium of 30 to 50 partners, or could even smaller consortia apply?
Well, there's no requirement for the size of the consortium, except that it should have at least 3 partners from 3 different countries. That's it. If you it depends on your project. If you make a project with few partners that is good and that it addresses the impact and that addresses the topic, it's fine. It's not. There's no requirement for building large consortia. Nowhere. But of course, if you have a 9 million, 12 million euro project, you might not have only 3 partners in general.
Any more questions? So I have one. The budget for a work program for 2013 has increased around 20% compared to last year. Does it mean that you will see that increased number of projects being financed, or do you see larger projects being financed?
It means generally that the number is increased.
Okay.
We had last year, we had, I think 9 million was the highest. Maybe there's 12 million, I'm not sure, in the call. So, and this time it's the same. So the largest projects are in the order of 9 million, 10 million euros. So it must have been the number.
Okay. So, and you also...
But what we do here, what we also did last year, that's probably in this context interesting, if several projects are funded under the same subtopic, like we had in the last subtopic 3 projects funded, then we ask these consortia to cooperate and try to find a mechanism how they can interact in such a way that they communicate, that they use synergies and so on. That's so we kind of build clusters of projects that are then, of course, quite big clusters, but still the projects themselves are managed individually. So we're not having this, like in the previous years, this very huge consortia that are then really hard to manage.
Okay. You also have a, on this slide, you talk about 14 topics with SME participation levels as mandatory. What's the background behind that? Why do you focus on SMEs? Because you're not doing that in all other themes. Some themes like KBB and environment who do this. Why is that?
Well, there are some topics that are specifically technology related, environmental technologies, for example, other topics, and it's a general goal of FP7 to support SMEs. So that's the rationale behind it. Further questions?
Okay. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. So let's move on to the second presentation, and that will be given by Dr. John Munthe from IVL, which is the Swedish Environmental Research Institute. And John is involved in many type of projects in the Swedish society, and but he is also a member in the Swedish Advisory Committee of FP7 Environment, which is run by the Ministry of Environment. And his organization has a huge and long experience of participating in all kinds of EU projects, and he's here to share his experience from these years. Please, John.
Thank you very much, Isa, and I want to thank you everyone for coming here. My name is John Munthe, as mentioned, and I will give a presentation that is based on my institute and our own experience of EU projects. We just heard all the sort of formal topics and budgets, etc., related to this next call, and I would like to give some very general ideas on our experiences and some advice for how to be successful in EU research. First of all, a very brief introduction to my institute, IVL, Swedish Environmental Research Institute. We are independent, a non-profit research institute. We do both research and consulting in a broad range of environmental and climate, energy, environment, clean tech, management and socioeconomics, etc. We have about 200 employees with a wide range of environmental expertise. We have accredited laboratories for chemical analysis within our own projects and for external customers. And what makes us a bit unique is that we are owned jointly by the Swedish government and the Swedish industry via a foundation where with 50-50 representation from both the government and the industry. And we have been around since 1966, so we have more than 40 years experience of environmental issues in Sweden and internationally. not on the slide, but we are our main office is at the Royal University of Technology here in Stockholm, and we also have offices in Gothenburg on the Chalmers campus. That's where I usually live. And we also have an office in Beijing for our work in China. But that's another story. I'll skip that one. IVL in research, in European research. We very much like European research. It's an important part of our funding. And we are currently participating in more than 40 European projects. They are from a range of different programs. About 16 of them are from FP7 environment. It's a very high number for us also, but some of them are just winding down and closing, and some are just starting up. So that's why we have so many. In a few months, we'll have much less, I think. But right now, we have a lot. We usually have several EU projects funding running. We have a total research budget last year from EU was 32 million Swedish crowns, about 4 million euros. About half of that came from FP7 environment. And the topics are very broad. It ranges from chemicals, water technologies, air and climate, impacts of transport, process technologies, etc. So we are trying to look for opportunities for research in all parts of the environment work program. Just three examples of EU projects that we are currently involved in. One is called ArcRisk. It's about Arctic health risks related to contaminants, to chemical contaminants, and how climate change will affect human health risks in the Arctic. It's a relatively big program. You can't see who the partners are, but you can see that there are a number of partners on this graph up here, including Stockholm University, actually, our colleagues at ITM in the next building here. And this is a program that the research we're doing here, or some of the groups are doing, is quite basic. Someone was asking about basic research. It's about understanding the transport of chemical contaminants to the Arctic, uptake in the food chain, human exposure, health effects. So some of the research is quite basic. It's about doing environmental measurements, modeling, looking at health impacts, etc. But the final goal of the project is more EU policy. When we have done all the research, what are the recommendations we can give to European policymakers about health risk related to contaminants, especially focus on the Arctic, but also other parts of Europe? And this is maybe the most difficult part of the project, and it's actually our responsibility together with the whole team. This is something that is ongoing now and will go on for another year. It's a very challenging and interesting project. It's coordinated by the Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program, which is an international organization under the Arctic Council. So the end users are very much on the policy side and international agreements, and of course the scientific community. Another example is Transform. It's about the emissions of particulate matter from the transport sector, where we are trying to develop and implement an integrated methodology to assess health impacts of particulate matter from transport emissions. So it's health again, but it's different kinds of exposure and different compounds. There are lots of research activities here on particulate matter emissions, human exposure, models for dispersion, etc. IVL, in this case, is involved in emission measurements from shipping mainly, and modeling. Shipping emissions of pollutants have been very much in focus, discussed in the media over the last year, so this is a very relevant project. And again, the main end users of the results are national and EU policymakers, research community, and of course the transport sector as well. The third and last example is called EcoWater, where the goal is to develop eco-efficiency indicators for water technologies and how they are taken up by the water sector. This is a project that I took this example because it's very much more applied, and it's closely linked to the private sector. The intention is to work together with the water industry, municipalities also, but and agriculture. In our case, we are part of the method development to develop these indicators, but also to do a case study together with Volvo in Sweden to look at how these indicators, eco-efficiency indicators, how they can be more useful and how we can develop them to become better. Right. IVL and EU projects. Main items for successful participation. This looks like very simple advice for FP7 environment, but this first one is obvious. You need a high quality proposal. It has to be very convincing that the project will deliver what the call for proposals asks for. I think when we participated in EU research many years ago, the EU received, I don't know this from first-hand information, but many proposals were sent in that were of very poor quality. They were making mistakes with the formalities, they were asking for the wrong thing, and they were simply put aside. Nowadays, I think my impression is that almost all proposals are very good. All member countries and research institutes, and they have understood the system, they know how to write proposals. What do you need more? You need strong international partners, experience, you need an administrative capacity, you have to understand the financial issues. I will say a few more about all these. You need international partners. That's one problem for universities and institutions. We are so used to cooperating with our colleagues in Sweden, for instance. But when we go to the EU, we can't bring all our friends from Sweden. We have to find friends in Europe, which is good. It's good, but it's a threshold you have to come over. You can use formal networks, academic or professional organizations. IVL is a member of something called ENERO, which is for research institutes. I'm sure there are many academic networks that can be used to find partners. Of course, we all, as scientists, have informal networks that we get at conferences, via cooperation, etc. There are also something called the technology platforms that I'm not so much involved in myself, and it may be even more relevant for other research programs from under FP7. But these are industry-led fora, stakeholder fora charged with defining research priorities in a broad range of technological areas. So if you are on the technology side of research, the technology platforms are certainly of interest. EU itself, Cordis, they run a partner service, so you can use the Cordis website to look for opportunities and partners. But what it usually boils down to is that you need to have contacts with leading institutions in the relevant field. If you want to get into European consortium, you try to figure out who are the best, which institutions are the best researchers, and you contact them. Hopefully you know some of them. If you don't, you can still contact them and ask if they are interested in cooperation. Experience and knowledge relevant to research program. I think this was mentioned before in the questions. It's really important to read the work program carefully. You have to understand the call text and what is called the expected outcome, which is usually a separate heading. You have to look at keywords and sentences and identify, can we really contribute to this? These calls are not open so that you can do something that is roughly within the field, discuss like climate change. You have to look, what do they want? And if you try to apply for something that is vaguely related to that area, then you won't be funded. And what everyone has to do is look at your own research in the larger contents. How can I contribute one piece? Because the call texts are often very broad. And to be honest, sometimes they are quite confusing. You read it and you say, oh, this is really interesting. And then you read it once again and say, what does it mean? And then you read it again, I don't know. And then you have to split it up. And then you have to find a few keywords and sentences, because you can, I think in the system, they circulate several times in different committees before they are published. And everyone adds their favorite keywords. So to us poor researchers to try to interpret what it means, it can sometimes be a bit difficult. But at least find some keywords and sentences that directly relate to your own competence. And also try to say, well, if we cooperated with these people, we could do this. And it's not only research. All proposals, all projects have a large chunk of dissemination. And it has to be relevant for policy or for industry or for both or for the general public. And you have to have, which is becoming more and more important. First, in the old days, you only had to do your research of high quality. Now, then you had to start disseminating it, not only just by papers and conferences, but to the general public and media. But what is becoming more important is the impact. Does your research actually make a difference? I think this will be even more important in Horizon 2020, if I understand correctly. And if you want to be a partner, find partners, you have to do all this work and then describe your potential contribution before you contact partners or have an idea. Of course, if you want to coordinate the proposal, you have to do even more work, because then you have to define what you should do and what other people should do. Administrative capacity. You have to read what the demands are on administrations very carefully. And you have to go in and register before sending a proposal, your institution on the Cordis, on the EU system, PIC number, etc. Don't have to go into the details. But about the administration of proposals and then projects, it has a very bad reputation. I don't think it's so bad. I think it's exaggerated. But it's very different, especially if you work at the university. For the financial reporting, the timesheets, you have to write down what you do every day. You have to report that. And the financial reporting is extremely important, that you do it properly. And sometimes you have to get an audit certificate. You have to get an external auditor in to look at your numbers and see that it's okay. And then he has to write a certificate that you submit to the EU. So, but it's not that bad actually, and the first time is a bit tricky, but I think it's very much exaggerated. But when you have a project, the timing is critical. You have to do it right, and you have to submit your reports on time, otherwise you don't get paid. It's worth putting some investment into developing your administration. The financial issues, there are guidelines for this on the Cordis website. For each and every call, you have to read them carefully. What are the eligible costs? What do you actually get paid for? That's important. You don't get paid for anything. Acceptable overhead rates and funding rates, they vary, and you have to look at the rules. Secondly, EU funding doesn't cover all the costs. I think it's 75% in most cases for both universities and institutes nowadays. So you have to find the 25% from somewhere else. And you cannot say, okay, we'll take the 75% and do something for that. You have to, when you sign the contract, you guarantee that you have the remaining 25%. And then when you get the project, you also have this consortium agreement that is potentially extremely important. Most people don't pay a lot of attention. It's a binding agreement between the partners, not with the Commission, but between the partner. If someone doesn't do their job, they don't do anything, they spend the money and don't deliver, if they don't come to meetings, if they disappear, or if they do something else. This is all regulated by the consortium agreement. In 99 out of 100 programs, you don't have to worry about that. But for the most, if you have a problem, then it's good to have a good consortium agreement. Also about this, the rights of ownerships and licenses, etc., to results. Now, one thing that is important today, timing. The call was issued in July, I think, and the deadline is October. It's a very short time. A lot of work was already going on since the beginning of the year. And the documents, the draft calls for proposals, they circulate in the research community, officially or unofficially, but they are there. And they change with time, so you don't know 3 months before the call exactly what the call will be, but you have an idea, and the closer you get, you have a better and better idea. So you are not 100% sure until the call comes what it will actually be, but a lot of activities start many, many months before the call comes. So for many of these calls that were presented, there are already a number of big consortia formed. Some of them want more partners, some don't, etc. So this is, but this is the last FP7 call, so it's too late to worry about that. The deadlines we already mentioned. But what is really encouraging, and I think for people to get involved, is the very large budget, which was already mentioned, 265 million euro in total for if I summed it up correctly. But still, October 16 is not that far away, and for the two-stage proposal, it's only 10 pages. So it's not a question of putting a lot of work into a nice proposal now, but it's finding partners and a good consortium that is important. So, summary, read the work program carefully and call text. They are all on the website, so it's available. There are a large number of other documents that sometimes you should ask if you are a scientist, you should ask your financial people, you should ask your legal people to have a look at those. And there's lots of general information available. You check the administrative demands, the eligibility, and the financial rules. And then you, of course, the main thing, identify your potential contributions, find the partners, etc. This takes a lot of activity. Lots of emailing and phone calls, talking to people. Are you interested? Can we join? Do you want to join us? But it's work that can be very fruitful if you succeed. And obviously there is a lot of information on the Cordis website, and much, much more than has been said here. And of course you have the national contact points that also know all about this system. I think that were the main issues I wanted to say about our experience, and thank you very much.
Very good speech and presentation of your experience. So the floor is now open for questions. Anna. Crystal clear.
Thank you, Jan, for a very interesting presentation. I'm Anna Ledin from the Swedish Research Council, Formas. I think you forgot one thing. You almost mentioned it, but I think my former boss at the Technical University of Denmark, he told us something, and that is that you have to be so good that you are the first person or the first group on the list to call when the call is coming up. So this is very much long-time work, and that's also what you are saying. Maybe if you are not involved yet for this call, it's still possible to go there, but actually it's more important to think about what is coming next and how to make sure that you are among those best scientists in Europe that to be involved. And I think you have been pretty successful at EVL to do that, to make sure that you will deliver and you will be there and you will contribute. So for those of you who are not already involved in this kind of networking, I think it's time to spend some efforts to make sure that you are among those people in Europe that people know about and will be invited to join. I will show that very soon that the money coming from EU is increasing, and we expect it to increase even more, where the national funding still is there, but where the EU funding will be even more important.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's a good point. I agree completely. It takes time, but if once you have a reputation as a reliable partner, then you are much more often invited to participate.
With the good ones.
Yes, with the good ones, yeah.
My name is Jan-Olof Eriksson from SMHI, a colleague, you can say, to IVL. I'd like to reflect a little upon this. When you have a call, there's always the risk that you get carried away and do things that maybe IVL or others wouldn't do from the beginning, but you changed your mind when you saw this is an interesting one. How is it? Do you think you are the scientists that are driving you into the calls, or is it the management that put out strategies for you and the research guys come along? How would you reflect upon that within your company and the risk with these calls?
At IVL, internally, we are such a small company, so you are not only management or only research, you are both. And for individual researchers, we take on, or any scientist at IVL, they take on topics where they have their own interest, or where they get contacted by someone. So it's sort of a natural process. We do have some. Sometimes I can, in my management role, I can push people. You should go for that. And also we have some pressure from our owners to do things in a particular way and select what we do. So there is some of that, but I would say in general that it's the individual contacts and interests of the scientists that is the most important factor, because even if we want to do something, if we don't have a reputation in that field, it's much harder to get in. But on the other hand, sometimes we get EU projects where we are asked to do things that we have not that much experience of. Then you have to be careful. Like, you don't want to get into something that you cannot deliver a good result. But on the other hand, if it's a long 3, 4, 5 project, you can learn during this time. If it's not too, I mean, if it's within reasonable, close to your own competence, then you can use the EU project as a sort of learning and establishing new contacts, new areas. So, but you have to balance it. Don't try to get into things you can't handle. That.
Any more questions? So if you have someone coming up to you and saying, this is the first time we're going to apply for an FP7 application, what would be the 3 strongest recommendations for them?
Someone at IVL?
No. I assume that all 200 knows exactly how to do FP7.
No, but we have no. But I would say, really define what your contribution could be to a consortium. Something that fits very nicely, and write it down on maximum half a page. Secondly, who are the best people in Europe that you would expect are part of a good consortium on this topic, and then write them a nice letter, call them, and send your half page. We can do this, and of course write something about what is also important for the consortium, but also for the Commission, is that if you are a new organization, you have to convince them that you are stable and that you have to submit some financial documentation for the last, I don't know how many years, and you have to prove them that you are not getting the grant and then going bankrupt or something. But that's maybe more important to the contract part.
One important topic here is the SMEs. What is your experience working with SMEs?
Well, I think our experience, as for the rest of Sweden, that we haven't done it enough. I think it is a challenge to include SMEs especially in the environment program. Especially, we have a bad record in Sweden, and I think that depends. I think the reason is maybe that is how we are structured in Sweden. We have a couple of institutes like IVL, SMHI. We have a number of university institutions that do very applied research. In other countries, some of this work maybe is done by SMEs, etc. So we don't have this. We don't have these we don't have a tradition of cooperation with SMEs for environmental issues. Sometimes in the technology areas, environmental technologies, of course, but say in the more general policy-oriented that are directed to give support to policy development to the EU environment, DG Environment, and to national. Then we don't have that tradition. So I think it's different. So it's a challenge for us and for everyone.
Okay, great. Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
So let's move on to the third. To the third presentation, which will be given by Professor Anna Ledin from Formas. She has already presented herself. But besides being Secretary General at Formas, she is also one of the experts in the program committee in the Framework 7 environmental program, and also the Secretary of the Advisory Board, which John is also sitting in. And she will share her experience from the work actually in the Environment Program Committee, and also give us some examples on how Sweden has been successful in getting their topics under the lamp, so to say. Please, Anna.
Thank you, Esa. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Esa, for the introduction. As Esa said, I'm Secretary General for the Swedish Research Council for Environment, Agricultural Sciences and Special Planning. I'm also professor at Lund University, so I'm also one of you, at least one day a week. Esa asked me to talk a little bit how we, from the Swedish point of view, the Swedish government and the Swedish authorities are involved in developing and have impact on the programs. Now it's maybe a little late to talk about this because this is the last call in the 7th framework program. We are not sure what happens for the 8th framework program, but still I think it would be interesting for you to know how we work on this, and I'm quite sure that we will continue to work in a similar way in the future. The 7th framework program, as I mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, it's the largest research and development funding scheme in the world. It's a lot of money that is allocated this way, from the taxpayers to the researchers. It was mentioned by friends earlier here that the idea and the aim is, of course, to increase in the industry in Europe and the competitiveness in Europe. We would like to contribute to creating the most dynamic, competitive, knowledge-based economy in the world. A lot of nice words, right? And I think this has become even more important with the financial crisis. In Sweden, we are, how to say, on the safe side. We are not so impacted. But a lot of countries in Europe are very impacted by the financial crisis. And the research funding program will be extremely important here. Here you can see some of the figures for Sweden. And the funding in 2010. We are not sure what happens now. We saw that our Minister of Education, he talked about the upcoming research bill this morning in Dagens Nyheter. I think we can quite sure that they won't do any cuts. Most likely they will increase the national budget in Sweden for research. But we also see that the national budget, the budget from the European Commission will increase for research funding. So here you can see the main funding bodies in Sweden with Vetenskapsrådet as the biggest funder, FP7 as number 2nd, VINNOVA with almost 2 billion krona, Formas and FAS. So you can see it's important that we as Swedish scientists can actually gain this money and be part of these projects running in Europe. If we look upon how it's organized from the Swedish point of view, we have the program committee, and the Swedish representation in the program committee for environment, including climate change, that is Åsa Guilamo from the Ministry of Environment. There are people from the authorities that are experts guiding her. I'm one of them, and Tove Hammarberg, who is not here, no? She is from the Swedish EPA. She's also one of the experts. In practice, Åsa has never been there. So in practice, it's actually me and Tove who is doing the negotiations from Sweden in the program committee that have the impact, try to have the impact on the program, the call text, and so on. To supporting us, we have the national contact points. You have seen ESA, you have seen Jessica, and we also have Britta Fengström, who is recently back from maternity leave. That is the national contact points. And those are the people for you to approach that can give you all the information you need regarding these calls. The mission in the program committee to negotiate for Sweden, and there are two purposes here. One purpose is to make sure that the calls from the Commission, they have topics that are important for Sweden. They will gain knowledge that is important for the development of Sweden. But also, of course, to make sure that the calls are in areas where Swedish scientists can actually get the funding. And both these two aims are of importance, and I would say of equal importance. The work, what are we doing in the program committee? Well, we take the formal decisions regarding the content of the work program. And as John mentioned, these calls, they are circulating long time before they actually are decided on. And these are negotiations in the program committee with people from all the member states discussing what should be in there. I will come back to that in some more detail later on. We also take the formal decisions regarding the funding of projects. But when that is said, I would say that we have very, very little impact. We take the formal decision, but all the evaluation is performed by external panels. So what I'm actually doing is that I say yes to a proposal from the Commission, and that's it. So don't try to phone me and try to convince me that your project should get funding, because in practice I have no impact at all on that level. But on the first level, with just the content, there we have impact. We have impact on the evaluation procedures, how to evaluate the proposals, with discussions regarding one-step, two-step procedures, discussions regarding criteria, and so on. It's important with the European Commission, and this is increasing, and that's something that I wanted to bring with you, and that is that there's quite a lot of emphasis on coordinating the national funding, the funding that we have at Formas, the funding they have at Vetenskapsrådet, and so on, to coordinate that to be put into European programs. The whole idea with the ERA, the European Research Area, to make sure that the national funding is coordinated into big European programs. The joint program initiatives are coming up. At the moment, very little funding from the Commission. We don't know in the future, but at the present, very little funding. The idea is to use this national funding in those programs. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to use that in a smart way. I don't think it's all bad. Actually, I think it's pretty good. But we need to be aware of what we are doing here. Responsible for information, that is VINNOVA. That's why VINNOVA is organizing this day. So all information you need regarding these programs, VINNOVA can support you with that. VINNOVA is also following up with respect to success. That's part of ESA's job to find out how successful are we. Do we actually get the money back? And I will come back to that in somewhat more detail later on. I said takes decisions regarding the content of the program. If we look upon that, I would say this is very challenging. There are a lot of players here. In the program committee, we typically negotiate the work program, like the one presented by Frans an hour ago, during half a year, with a number of meetings. But not only the member states are involved. Of course, the other DGs are involved. In our case, DG of Environment, of course, but also the other DGs. There are also advisory groups, it's industry, there's a lot of lobbying with respect to these calls. Here, it's very important to have a long-term strategy. now we are about to finalize the 7th framework program, but now it's time to think about the Horizon 2020 and how we are going to make sure that issues, questions of importance for Sweden will be part of the upcoming Horizon 2020. And there is where we can make a difference today. The Swedish strategy that we have been working on is to work with a reference group or an advisory group where we get recommendations of research needs. I don't know what happens in the future, but I hope that we will continue to have that. It's not my opinion, of course, that I'm expressing in Brussels. That's the opinion of the Minister of Environment, which I'm representing, based on advices from our advisory group and scientists that are approaching us. With respect to your possibility to have impact, it's a very good idea to send us ideas of research needs that we can bring forward. A lot of scientists are spending time on writing specific call texts. I think that is a waste of time. What I think we need to do is to make sure that we have a number of ideas that we bring forward to Brussels in an early stage. And then they can develop into concrete call texts. But there are very few that are successful in writing a call text and try to get it through the system. It doesn't work. If we look upon whether or not we have been successful, I have been in the program committee since 2008 or 2009 now, and there are some issues that we have been telling a couple of times every year. But just with pollution, for instance, the call 6.22 this year is pretty much what we suggested in 2009, and I'm very proud it's there now. Not exactly what we suggested, but very close by. And here you also can see some other tasks or issues that we have been putting on the table at least once, twice, 3 times a year to make sure that they're in there. And I think that's the best way to influence. And once again, if you have ideas that fits in now when we are going into Horizon 2020, please let me know. And we will bring that forward if it fits into the general Swedish strategy. Not in detail, but on overall basis. So, was it a good strategy? Yes, I think it was a pretty good strategy. We are a small country, and I think we have impact on a lot of the calls that you have in front of you now, where you are about to write your proposals. As I mentioned, we take decisions regarding the funding of projects. It's just a formal issue. However, we can look a little bit upon how successful we have been in Sweden. Here you can see how much Sweden has taken of the total budget. And here you can see that we are not that successful in environment as they are in health and security and transport. So we have more to do here. And especially in the point of view that Sweden has been early with environmental research. And I think that we think about ourselves as rather good in environmental issues and environmental research. It's a little bit surprising that we haven't been better in getting funding from EU in the past. And similar here in the knowledge-based bioeconomy, agriculture sciences, that's also surprising me a little bit that we are not better than this. So we could do better, and I think we should do better by, for instance, have meetings like this today. If we look upon the participation in the environment program so far and the success so far, we can see that we take 3.3% of the total budget so far in the environment program committee. It's of course a little bit difficult to say is that bad or good, but at least I think we should take more than the Danes, right? I've been a scientist there for 15 years, so I can say that. Yeah, we could do better. We need to think about how to do better in the future. The future. Yeah. The 7th framework program will be replaced by Horizon 2020. The cooperation program, where the Environment Program Committee is part today, will be replaced with the societal challenges. I hope that all of you are already familiar with these changes that are upcoming. There won't be any program committee for environment. There is no societal challenge called environment anymore. The environmental issues are incorporated in the challenges. There will be one that is focusing on climate change and resources. But we have to keep in mind that that's not all related to environment. Some of the environmental issues will go into energy, will go into health, will go into transportation, and so on. So be aware of that when the Horizon 2020 is coming up. That now environmental issues are integrated in the societal challenges and not seen as a challenge on its own. We don't know what that will mean. We just know that it will be more work for, I think, the environmental scientists to find out where to apply and identify the calls important for them. We don't know if the program committee and the work I have been doing in Brussels, negotiating, having impact on the calls, will be there. There is no decision yet, as far as I know. Of course, there will be some way or another where the member states will have impact on the content in the future, but we are not sure how that will be organized. So let's see what happens. So that's all for now. Questions?
Yep. So please.
It's a little bit retrospective. Everything is behind us now, but maybe there are any still questions that relates to the future and how we can have impact in the future.
John, please.
Well, I have a question about the future. Horizon 2020 will require a lot of cooperation, as I understand it correctly, will require a lot of cooperation between research and industry, and I assume research and authorities also, because the demand is much stronger on making the results useful in some way, innovations and obviously export industry and jobs and so forth are important, but I assume also policy making part is important. Do you know, is there any discussion in Sweden about some efforts from Formas or from VINNOVA or from anywhere else to prepare for this? I mean, we are trying from our side to think, how are we going to do this? We need to already now, or within 6 months, to have discussions with potential national partners in Sweden on EU research before we know what it will be actually. But is there any discussion going on from, say, Swedish policymaking side to how is Sweden as a country best going to use Horizon 2020?
To the best of my knowledge, there is no, how to say, official debate about that. As far as we don't have got any mission from the government to prepare for this, not yet. We know that the research bill is coming up now in October. And today we saw a flavor of what will be in there, but that's not related to the EU and the EU funding at all. We have been working on this for a couple of years in Formas now to make sure that the scientists that we are funding, the science we are funding, is more and more closely related to what the policymakers need. That's a part of the mission of Formas to do that, compared to VR, for instance. And I think we will continue to go in that direction. But especially the tricky issue, how to involve the potential users of this knowledge. Already when you formulate the research needs, not necessarily the research questions, because I think that is up for the scientist, but to identify the research needs, which is the first step. There I think we need to do more. And I'm not sure how we are going to handle that, but we don't have a mission today at Formas to do that. We also have the question that was raised before with involving the SMEs. It's very clear that it's much more emphasis on this in this work program for both environment and for knowledge-based bioeconomy. And I think it's pretty much due to the fact that we haven't been very successful yet. So now we have to put emphasis on especially these two programs. And we don't have the tools today, and we have some discussions with you how to do this successfully. And I also think that's a challenge for the Swedish researchers at the universities. How are you going to involve SMEs in these applications? Not only because they are a requirement and are compulsory to be there, but also to make sure that they will benefit to your research program. Because that's the whole idea, right? To increase the quality even more. And that is, of course, something we need to think about and continue to work on.
Hey Anna, Linda Krondahl, I'm from High Nation, so I'm one of those SMEs. And you just briefly touched just what I was about to ask. Will there still be an SME component, compulsory component in the Horizon 2020?
I'm sure about that, yes, it will. I think the whole idea with innovation and the only way to make sure that we have research, development and innovation together in that package is that we have scientists working together with the companies, for instance, in SMEs. So it's still there and it will be even strengthened.
Annette Wolf from Umeå University. You just, thank you for a very nice presentation, even if it was backward looking. And asking a forward question, I mean, you say there's a lot of things in the air not really known, but when will you know how these committees will work? And how do we as scientists or coordinators, how is the information flow going? How will we get to know that the EU make decisions on that?
The decisions will be taken this autumn. There are negotiations in the Parliament, right, at the moment. In the Council at the moment, yes. It's to find out how the European is working. But it's Council negotiations. And they will be finalized before Christmas. And as soon as we know that, we will, of course, communicate that from the research councils and VINNOVA. And it will be, as far as I know, it will still be VINNOVA in Sweden who is responsible for this communication. And if we get the mission to continue to work like this at Formas, we will immediately start to prepare for an advisory board and so on. Because that is extremely important. As I said before, it's also very important to be early, to have impact. So as soon as we know something, we will start to work on that.
I represent there another SME. And I wonder, will there be the same definition of SMEs in the future Horizon 2020, or will there be any changes concerning what is an SME?
This is a nice bridge for the next speaker, I think. So
I have no idea. I don't know.
Leave it to the next speaker. Erik.
Thank you. I used to be in the advisory group in the Swedish advisory group to the environment program between 96 and 06. I noticed we had extremely weak participation from private companies in that group. And I guess it's still the same. But if we look at the outcome of these programs, Sweden has been extremely successful compared to other EU countries, if you talk about general level of outcome of the FP7. But in terms of companies, not very successful. So can you identify any differences in relation to other countries? Why have other countries been more successful than Sweden in involving companies? Thank you.
I haven't seen any study on that or any really material where we try to find out why. But if I just make a personal reflection, Denmark compared to Sweden. In Denmark, it was a requirement almost 10 years ago that the research funding, for instance, in the area of the environment, to a much larger extent should be, also the natural funding should be matched by industrial funding. If that is the difference, but for me, coming back to Sweden and realizing that the Swedish environmental scientists, they are not working so much together with the industry as I had to do in Denmark. I don't know if that is the difference, but it could be one reason of the difference. And in Denmark, it was a requirement from the government with having industrial co-funding. And we ask for that to a very, very low extent. Sorry.
Lars Research Liaison Office at Stockholm University. I would just like to comment that at grants offices at the universities, we help the researchers to provide you with interests of the researchers apart from the NCPs that has been mentioned already.
You're right. You're right. And I also think that what you say there, sorry for forgetting that, because that has also changed the last, I think, 5 years, that all Swedish universities have grants office today that actually have this kind of support and help, which is needed in order to be able to join these rather big projects and programs.
My name is Mariam Hansson-Edalat, also a colleague of Lars here at Stockholm University. You were talking about the Swedish participation in environmental program and not being so high. Do you know whether we have high number of applications that are not successful, or are we just not interested in environmental research at EU level, or why? I mean, it can't just be that we are not as good. It must be something else.
You mean if the success rate is lower for
Yes.
Sweden
Yes.
compared to others? I don't know that. Do we have any... Esa and Britta are those that are experts on the figures.
I think we have a report here coming up. There we have it. Maybe that was on your picture, Frans. I think you had it. The success rate, yeah.
You're right.
I would say like 25%, 20 to 25% success rate, if you read it quick. No.
But what we know and we have seen is that there are rather few Swedes that take the coordination role. And I think that if we don't take the coordination role as scientists, in the long run, maybe it will be more difficult also to be among those that are on the top of the list to be asked to join. Because taking the coordination role is an important task and a tough task. And if we never take it, maybe we are not invited. And I think, IVL, you have been very successful in also taking the coordination role. Not all the time, but sometimes you have done that, and it's a way to show that you are there. As a coordinator, you will be visible around in Europe when you talk about successful programs running.
And that will also show up in the statistics on budget, because coordinators usually get more budget than the participants.
I have one more comment. You were talking about industrial partnership. You were talking about co-funding of industry, and in general, it is a problem in Sweden that industry is not funding research in general. So this is not something that has to do with participation in EU. In general, industry is not investing as much money in research as they should compared to other, and this is an European problem actually, not only a Swedish problem. Globally, Europe is not funding in research from industry as much as they should.
Well, let's not go into that discussion, but what my point was, what in Denmark, what happened was that you asked for much more co-funding of the national funding. And that meant that the Danish researchers start to collaborate with the industry. And when they already have good established collaboration, both with the producers, but also with a lot of the consulting companies that are really big in this area in Denmark on environmental, and especially environmental engineering. You have the collaboration up running. And then when you're going to apply for EU money, you already have this good collaboration with good people. In Sweden, as a scientist, you have to start from scratch and first find potential collaborators, find out if they are good enough, and so on. So that's why I meant that it could be part of the success in Denmark to get EU funding. It's a kind of a side effect, positive side effect.
Okay, thank you, Anna. That was a great, nice question and answer session. So now we move on to the last speaker, which is Per Lindqvist, as a project leader at SP. And I think the interest around SMEs, or small to medium enterprises, has really been built up during today. So Per, we expect you to give us all you know about SMEs and where they can join the EU programs.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah, Per, you have a lot of expectations in the room now about SMEs.
Yes, I heard the word SME many times. My name is Per Lindqvist, as was said. I work at SP, Technical Research Institute of Sweden. And most of my time I spend helping our own researchers. We're about 1,200 employees at SP now. And we participate in around 80 EU projects. 65 to 70 of them are FP7. And let's see, there it comes, yes. But today I'm here representing a specific project then, which are run together with the other institutes in RISE, Research Institutes of Sweden. And my short presentation is disposed like this. I will talk a little bit about the actual support, what kind of help you can get as an SME. And then I will also go into the SME definition someone asked about, and then also some reasons on how other companies or SMEs think, why they are participating, why should you participate, what's the good sides. And then I have listed a little bit the SME opportunities, which you have already seen from France, but just so that you have them in the printouts with a deadline. And I will also talk a little bit about an opportunity to get a planning grant from VINNOVA as an SME called SMINT. So this project has been running since June 2011 and will continue until the end of this year. It's financed by VINNOVA, and it is co-run between the 4 institutes under Research Institutes of Sweden, which is completely governmentally owned. So our sister institutes are Sverige, Inventia and Swedish ICT. And what we get money from VINNOVA to do is to coordinate our actions and increase the competence internally. But what is most interesting today and probably the most important for the project is to increase the SME participation in FP7 and try to stimulate that. So this is the list. There are more things on the list. I think you had an excellent crash course from John on how to do it, so I know you're not standing on level 0. But if you're an SME, you might not have access like researchers at universities or at institutes to grants offices, and a little bit that is how we want to work with the SMEs. So if you have questions, you should come to us. So more specifically, we can match your project's ideas to the work programs. And I mean, it was brought up when how far do you deviate from what you want to do just to fulfill what the EU wants you to do. And for an SME, this is a very important borderline to go, because you have your core business, and if that fits into a call, everything is fine. But you need to really marry these two ideas, and you need to know what project to finance. We can advise on consortium building and help you find partners. Maybe we can you can join consortia built up by the institutes. We explain the application process. We help you with registration in the databases. It's not the most difficult things in the world, but all of this sort of the feeling that it's a lot and that it's difficult is there. So we can help you. Advice on how to write an application. I mean, for sure, this last round is going to be the toughest. As was mentioned earlier, now people know how to write, how to apply. Impact is increasingly important. So, I mean, that's the first and best advice when you write. Start with the impact. Look at the expected impact. Look also at the rest of the work program you're in. And then you fit your idea into that. These sort of discussions is we go into with the SMEs, look and also try to fit them in. And then when you get your application in and you have your successful application there, you might need some help with negotiation phase with the EC. And when you run the project, you have to report according to this system with economy, all of this, how do you do it, and so on. So we're basically there to answer the questions you have about FP7 and help you. You can mail us at the mail address there. We also have a link which will come at the end where you can mail us. So the SME definition in Sweden then. It was asked previously if there will be a difference in Horizon. I have not heard any such tendency. I think this is a 72-page document that the EC is happy with, I would assume. Anyway, I know that VINNOVA has changed its definition when it comes to SME and lifted the part of ownership out of the equation, so that if you are that would of course be fantastic if also the EC could do, because that would open up for many more small companies in Sweden to participate. Anyway, the definition goes that you need to be an organization registered as a company at Bolagsverket in Sweden. And the number of full-time employees should be less than 250. So, I mean, it's small and medium-sized. I mean, I think Swedish company, I think 250 is pretty big. It's more than medium, but that's the level. So you can be pretty big. And then it comes to the ownership. As long as you're owned or own yourself another company to a level of less than 25%, everything is fine. If you're not sure, or if it's between 25 and 50, you will be called get a partner company. You have to recalculate your number of employees and economy and so on. If it's more than 50%, you will be, if you're 50% or more owned by Volvo, you need to add the numbers of Volvo into the equation, and then you're probably not an SME. Anyway, if you have questions about this, we can always go through it. You have the financial part at the end. If your turnover is maximum 50 million euro, or the balance sheet amounts to less than 43 million euro, then you're fine. So it's an or. One of these needs to be fulfilled. One does not. And this is the reasons. I actually got this slide from VINNOVA. They had asked SMEs what they think is the good side of being a partner or a part of a EU project, FP7 project. And obviously you're there to develop new products, services or processes. In the best of worlds, you develop them together with your customers who are trying them out for you. You acquire new competencies. You can share this risk. If it's a very important project to you, you will be sharing the risk with the other partners. And of course, you get access to new partners and customers. And it's actually, this is at the center of why you should be a partner. Because if you think about your product line 5 years from today, you might want to expand. You might start to think in projects. What do we need to do to get to Europe and to the world? Why not do it together with other people? You collaborate with world-leading researchers, and that's of course nice and comforting. And you can also use this to develop international standards. If you find these kind of projects, that's the sort of upside of being a part of an FP7 project, according to these SMEs. So I had a look in the work program 2013, and as in many other work programs, there is this increasing focus on SMEs. It has been increasing since the start of FP7, and I think in total it's been 11.8% participation of SME partners in the environment theme, and it states now that the intention is to reach 15%. And then, as we heard Franz say before, there are some topics where SMEs are focused. I mean, you either have a share of the budget or in any other way it's stressed that you should participate as an SME. And I have listed them here. You have seen them before, and they're in the work program, but they're in these printouts out there, so you can see the deadline and which of these topics you are interested in that are two-stage and when the deadline is. And it's a good thing that many of them are two-stage. You already heard that it's starting to get really late to start from scratch, but application-wise it's not as big a deal with the two-stage, and it has become over all FP7 more popular with the two-stage, and it's, I think, something that the SMEs like a lot. So I will not go through this. You have seen them before, but you have this. The Ocean of Tomorrow also have two topics with sensors that are SME targeted. And you have this demonstration activity, which has also been mentioned. And of course, these are the topics where SMEs are stressed in some way, but it's probably very hard to get any FP7 application through today without an SME in the consortium. So energy efficient buildings as well, which is most of the budget comes from the NMP theme, but it's if you're in this field of retrofitting or renoveringar. Then finally, I want to mention something about SMINT, VINNOVA program for planning grants, specifically for SMEs who want to apply. It's quite a big thing to just, if you're a small company, put someone to make all of these efforts, trying to come up with an application to FP7, find a consortium and so on. But if you want to do it, you can get money from VINNOVA. They will finance up to 60% of your costs. Maximum is 150,000 Swedish kronor you can get. And you have to, as in any application, tell VINNOVA why do you need the money and what will you do with it. But apart from that, it's a very straightforward application, and it's very flexible. And you can apply for it up to 6 weeks before the EU program closes. And the contact NCP, I saw she's on the roll-up from VINNOVA out there, Karin Åse. But I'm sure you can ask anyone about help at VINNOVA. So yeah, it's always open. And then I just have some links. The participant portal, which have increasingly put everything at the same place. This is the old Cordis. I mean, a lot of information from Cordis has moved to the participant portal. You do the registration there, you find the calls, you find everything there. And well, I have to give you the opportunity to read the SME definition. I think that's you must do that. And then a SMINT link, and also specifically a link to our help desk on the USME, where you can put your question in. And we promise to answer your question within 48 hours, I think we have said. Yes. Thanks a lot.
Nice presentation and summary of the SME side. Any questions to Per on this, on his presentation?
Yes, hello. Charlotte Ekman from Minesto, also representing an SME. So I think this is a really good initiative that could be very useful. And I just wonder a little bit about the results from the project so far. How many contacts have you had? How many approved applications and application at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course there is a lag. We started in the summer last year, 2011. I think we have maybe 150 companies or so that we have been in contact with. Application-wise, it's not, I don't know exactly, but it's probably somewhere around 10 and 20. And it's not been, we haven't come to the proper evaluation phase. We started at this time then last year, so there's been one period where we sort of tried to catch up a few companies that were applying, but hopefully we will catch up a lot more now this second time. Well, I think that it's been discussed why is it difficult to have SMEs there, and I think that one factor is that they don't know about it. They don't know what's going on at the universities and institutes, and I'm glad to see that there are SMEs here today, because it's tough to leave your daily job and go out on this kind of informations. So if you have never heard of it as well, and you start now, it's tough to get into it and end up applying the same year. So as well as was said earlier, next framework program is something we will also be involved in looking at and helping.
Yes, hello, I'm Mårten Solman from Teknikföretagens branschgrupper, Technical Engineering Industries Branch Associations. And I'm responsible for 6 business organizations, and I meet hundreds of SMEs on a yearly basis. I can understand your point. It may be difficult to reach the SMEs directly, but I think you should use the business organizations. I would be happy to sort of help you to reach out to the companies, because
we need that.
It's a mutual sort of. It's for them also. It's difficult to reach to the proper information about how to apply and how to handle these applications, because
absolutely
it's the first time for almost everybody.
Yeah, that's it.
And many of them would be happy to participate.
Yeah, excellent.
Hello, I'm Annika Bergman. I work at University of Gothenburg at Grants Office. So I often come into contact with SMEs, but not so often Swedish SMEs. And often it is very much my support to them. So I get to guide them through the application and also the negotiation process, which is, well, pretty difficult for most of them. So I wonder, I assume you don't support international SMEs, but do you have knowledge of other European sort of organizations that work like you, that we can guide them to?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, also for the SP, when we're applying, it's more foreign SMEs you come in contact with, and then in that role, I think we in the universities help the foreign SMEs as well. If we're coordinating, we have a responsibility for the project, and we guide the partners involved. I am not aware of any function exactly like this. I mean, there are some. I mean, maybe there is something for biotech, or maybe there is something for. We have another support office in Sweden as well for Sweden Bio, which is more bio. But I am participating in meetings in Brussels with the ARTO, the European RTO organization, and we're trying to exchange these kind of things, and I want to inspire them to start something similar at their institutes in Europe. But I mean, if you have any SME issues at the grants offices, you can for sure contact us. If that's what you need.
I mean, we help them, of course,
yeah,
we do.
Yeah.
When we are coordinating, we have to.
Yeah,
I mean,
think
but it would be good for us to just sort of know where to, well, you can contact us. And
yeah, it's sort of out of the mission, but anyway.
So I'd like to offer a wishful thought phrased as a question.
Shoot.
Micro companies have a major problem getting involved in EU research because there's so much involved in starting with the administration and for the long-term commitment. However, one way it might be possible would for them to act as subcontractors. Now, is it possible for them to act as subcontractors to for instance, a university, and in that case, the subcontract in itself would be 100% payment to an SME?
I think they should be partners if they want to be.
I didn't ask what you think they should be. I asked, could there be an opportunity?
Well, I mean, I think that subcontracting, there are certain programs like Research for SMEs, which is under capacities.
Yes, yeah.
In that case, they can participate either by being on the sort of the SME side, buying research from research performers, but they can also be research performer if they want to just, if they have a service, they can, some sort of research, they can perform for other SMEs, they can sell it through this program if they want to.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. There are many rules, but on the other hand, think about the venture capital. I never hear any SME saying, there's so much to prepare, there's so much difficulties before going to venture capitalists. So there are some upsides as well with this. If you can stand some red tape and so on, it's not that bad.
I guess we haven't spoken with as many SMEs, you and I. I've heard quite some reactions to venture capital.
As well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? If not, I will close this meeting by asking the speakers to come up to the stage for hand over some presents or gifts for you. I'll start with the ladies first. Thank you. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.